My name's Jesse, and I turned 30 last month. 30, the big 30. That strange age where you're not young anymore, but you're not exactly old either. You've probably seen the memes. At 30, you either have a thriving career, 3 kids, and a mortgage, or you're eating cup noodles at midnight trying to guess your neighbor's Wi-Fi password. Well, I wasn't doing either. I had cupcakes. Just me, a 6-pack of store-bought funfetti cupcakes, and the quiet hum of my fridge. The candles I lit myself were more out of irony than celebration. I didn't even sing. What would have been the point? Now, before you get the wrong idea, this isn't some self-pitying cry for attention. I've always been a pretty self-sufficient guy. Quiet. Observant. The kind of person who doesn't post about every life event or text "good morning" to a dozen people. But I guess I always assumed that when my 30th rolled around, at least someone would reach out. A card. A call. Even a dumb meme. Something. But the silence? It was deafening. Not one call. Not one text. Not even a lazy HBD on Facebook. And before you ask, no, my phone wasn't broken. The Wi-Fi was fine. The world just didn't show up. My family's never been huge on birthdays, but they used to at least acknowledge it. A group text from mom. A hope you're good call from my older brother Ryan. Bare minimum stuff. I didn't expect a party. I didn't even expect gifts. But I did think they'd remember. That I'd matter enough to at least be mentioned. But instead, I spent that whole day refreshing my notifications like an idiot. Then eventually, I stopped. I turned off the phone. I made coffee. I put on a movie I'd already seen 5 times and let it play in the background while I ate a cupcake and tried not to care. But I did care. And that's what really started this whole thing. Because a week later, out of nowhere, my phone buzzed. I hadn't turned off notifications entirely, just the ones from social media. This was a message in our old family group chat. The same one that used to be used for everything from Thanksgiving planning to sharing my niece's kindergarten finger paintings. Ryan, hey guys, family reunion cruise this summer. $2,200 per person, but so worth it. Jess, can you cover mom and dad's cabins like last time? Folded hands, folded hands, folded hands, let's lock it in ASAP. Just like that. No, hope you're doing okay. No. Hey, sorry we missed your birthday. Nothing. Not a word. Just an assumption that, once again, I'd step in and be the bank account they all leaned on when things got expensive. Because that's been my role for years now. The invisible wallet. See, I'm the quiet one in the family. Yeah, but I'm also the one who made it out. I work in IT, freelance database infrastructure, mostly. It's not flashy, but it pays well when clients are steady, and I've been careful with money since I was in college. I bought my first apartment at 27. No roommates. No car payments. No debt. I never really talked about my work with the family, but somehow they knew just enough to know that I wasn't struggling. And that made me the rich one. Which, in my family, doesn't mean, good job, we're proud of you. It means, you're paying. At first, it was small stuff. Hey Jess, can you spot dad's car repair? He's short this month. Or, we're going in on a group gift for grandma. Can you cover your part, and Sarah's too? She's in between jobs. But over the years, it turned into full-on expectations. I paid for my sister's emergency root canal. I bought plane tickets for Ryan's kids when their vacation plans fell through. I even covered half the deposit for my parents' downsized condo when they weren't liquid after selling the old house. And every time, I told myself, it's fine. It's family. That's what you do, right? But lately, something shifted. They stopped asking. They just started assuming. And that cruise message? That was the final straw. Because it wasn't just the money. It wasn't just that they forgot my birthday and then had the nerve to hit me up for thousands of dollars like I was some kind of travel agency with a family discount. It was the audacity, the entitlement, the sheer lack of awareness. So I didn't reply right away. I let it sit for a bit. I even reread the message a few times to make sure I wasn't overreacting. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I was being sensitive. Nope. I opened my banking app, took a screenshot of my closed joint account with my parents, the one they used to dip into occasionally for emergencies. I had shut it down 3 weeks ago when I started to feel this weird sense of emotional detachment from all of them. Like something inside me had just quietly clicked off. I replied with nothing but that screenshot. Then I left the group chat. Then I blocked them. Every single one. Mom, Dad, Ryan, Sarah, Aunt Julie, even little Liam's iPad number, which he probably didn't even use for texting, but I didn't care. I went nuclear. No explanations. No warnings. Just gone. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt calm. I spent the rest of that day in silence. Not the bitter, empty silence of my birthday, but a peaceful one. I took a walk. I made lunch. I cleaned out the junk drawer and listened to jazz while I vacuumed. Nothing big, just normal stuff. But it all felt clearer somehow, like a fog had lifted and I could finally breathe. Then came the knock at the door. 2 days later, right around 11 a.m. I was working on a server migration job when I heard it. Not a buzz, not a doorbell. A solid knock. 3 times. I wasn't expecting anyone. I barely ever get visitors, especially not during work hours. I muted my headphones and got up. There were 2 uniformed officers standing outside. One male, mid-40s, kind eyes. The other younger, maybe fresh out of the academy, arms crossed like he was bracing for something. "Are you Jesse Alton?" the older one asked. "Yeah," I said slowly, suddenly aware of how I hadn't showered yet. "Is something wrong?" They exchanged a glance. "We received a wellness check request. Said you might be in emotional distress. Possibly suicidal." I just blinked. The officer held up his hands. "We're not here to scare you. We just need to confirm you're okay." And that's when it hit me. They thought I was having a breakdown. They thought I'd snapped. They thought I was unstable because I finally stopped letting myself be used. I stepped aside and let them in, still processing. We talked for about 15 minutes. I explained everything. Calmly. Rationally. I even showed them the texts, the group chat, the birthday silence. At some point, I think the younger officer started to feel a little awkward, like he realized this wasn't a wellness issue. It was a boundary one. Eventually, they left. Said I seemed fine. Suggested I follow up with the family, just to keep the peace. But I didn't. Because the truth is, I wasn't having a breakdown. I was just finally at peace. And that was only the beginning. I didn't hear from any of them for almost 3 weeks after the welfare check. Not a single call, not even a burner number attempt or a fake checking in from an unknown account. I think that's what surprised me the most. After going nuclear, leaving the group chat, blocking everyone, sending a silent but loud message, you'd think someone, anyone, would try to reach out. But they didn't. And you know what that told me? I wasn't family to them anymore. I was a resource, a utility. And now that I'd shut the faucet off, they were content to let the well run dry and move on. Or so I thought. I filled those quiet weeks with work, caught up on client projects, read a few books I'd been putting off, started going to the gym again. I was sleeping better too, which was weird at first. You don't realize how heavy someone else's expectations are until you finally put them down. No more last-minute Cash App requests. No guilt-tripping calls. Just silence. Until Ryan showed up at my door. It was early March. Cold, windy, the kind of day that makes you appreciate double-paned windows. I was just finishing a call with a new client when I heard the knock. Firm, familiar, just like his. I didn't answer right away. I checked the peephole. Yep, Ryan. Standing there in a North Face jacket like he'd just come from a ski trip, hands in his pockets, eyes darting like he was already expecting confrontation. I opened the door just a crack. "Jess," he said, voice flat. "Can we talk?" My hand tightened on the door. "Did you send the cops to my house?" He blinked. "What?" "The welfare check," I said. "That wasn't you." He hesitated. "Look, it doesn't matter who called. We were worried." "You weren't worried," I snapped. "You were embarrassed. You couldn't get a hold of the ATM, and you panicked." He looked genuinely taken aback. "ATM? You text me about a cruise and forget my birthday in the same breath, Ryan. That's not concern. That's entitlement." He held up his hands. "Okay, look, maybe the timing was bad. I'll give you that. But you don't get to cut off the entire family because your feelings got hurt." I stared at him. "Is that what this is?" My feelings were hurt. He didn't answer. "Did you come here to apologize?" I asked. He paused again. "I came here to talk like adults." I nodded slowly. Then I stepped aside. "You've got 5 minutes." He came in, looked around like he expected everything to be the same. But it felt different now. Like the air had shifted. My apartment was no longer a satellite office for family problems. It was mine again. He sat on the edge of the couch, like he was too busy to get comfortable. "All right, straight talk. We all think you're overreacting." There it was. "And," he continued, "it's not just about the cruise. Mom and Dad are getting older, Jesse. They need support. And you're in a position to help." Funny how that word keeps coming up. I muttered. "Support. Help. Never we appreciate you." Never. You've done enough. Just more. Always more. He sighed. They raised you, didn't they? I leaned against the wall. Did they? He looked at me sharply. What's that supposed to mean? I shrugged. You remember when I moved out at 19? Took that job at the data center overnight shifts. Lived in that basement studio for a year and a half. Yeah. Did Mom or Dad ever visit? Even once. Ryan didn't answer. Did they call? Ask if I was eating? If I needed anything? Silence. I was on my own, man. I paid my way through certification, built my client list from scratch. No one helped me. I made every damn step alone. Okay, but so don't come in here and act like I owe anyone for raising me. I raised myself. He ran a hand down his face. This is ridiculous. No, I said. What's ridiculous is thinking I'm your safety net. You don't get to forget my existence until it's time to book a vacation and then call it family duty. He stood up. So what then? This is it. You're cutting ties with everyone over one birthday. I let out a breath. It wasn't one birthday, Ryan. It was every single time I was the afterthought. Every time I was the backup plan. Every time Mom handed me the bill without asking. Every time you joked that I was the quiet one, but still called when your bonus didn't come through. His eyes narrowed. You know what your problem is, Jess? You don't know how to be part of something. You sit on the sidelines judging everyone, and then you're shocked when no one bends over backward for you. I felt something snap. Quietly, but permanently. I walked to the door, opened it, and looked at him. He didn't move. I think it's time for you to go, I said softly. He scoffed. Unbelievable. He walked out without another word. I shut the door behind him, locked it, then leaned against it for a long time. And I thought that would be the end. But it wasn't. Because the next morning, I got a message, not from Ryan, but from my cousin Erica. It was a screenshot of a new group chat. Family Concerns, Orange Heart. I didn't recognize the name at first, but the list of members was familiar. My parents, Ryan, Sarah, Aunt Julie, even some of the more distant relatives who usually stayed out of things. And at the top, a pinned message. We need to figure out what's going on with Jesse. His behavior lately has been erratic and concerning. If he won't come to us, we'll need to take steps. He might be having a breakdown and not realize it. I read it twice. Then I saw the replies. Ryan agreed. If he's off his meds again, we need to step in. Mom, I knew something was wrong. He didn't even call after your father's scare last month. Aunt Julie, can we do a mental health hold? I heard you can petition the court. They weren't concerned. They were plotting. And then I realized what Ryan meant when he said they needed support. It wasn't just money. They wanted control. They were going to paint me as unstable, frame my silence as sickness, my boundaries as breakdowns. And if I didn't act fast, I knew where this was going. They weren't going to let me go. They were going to drag me back. And I wasn't going quietly. Not this time. Not ever again. I wish I could say I reacted with calm when I read those messages. That I stayed grounded and collected, the way people on the internet love to pretend they would in the face of betrayal. But that's not what happened. When I saw what my family was really saying behind my back, this twisted narrative they were stitching together, I felt something collapse inside me. It wasn't just hurt. It was grief. Not grief like when someone dies, but something close. Like mourning people who are still alive, but no longer who you thought they were. I sat on my couch for what felt like hours, staring at the messages, scrolling up and down, reading and rereading. My phone eventually dimmed and went black, but I didn't notice until the screen reflected my own face back at me. I looked hollow, like someone who had finally run out of excuses. They weren't confused. They weren't concerned. They were strategizing. And it was working, because for a moment, I actually started to question myself. Was I overreacting? Was I cutting them off too harshly? Was I really unstable, like they were saying? That doubt crept in like smoke under a door. And it lingered. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed replaying memories, little moments I'd ignored at the time. Mom whispering to Ryan at Thanksgiving and glancing at me like I wasn't supposed to hear. Sarah, accidentally, sending me Venmo requests she meant for her boyfriend. Dad joking that I was weird for not bringing a date to Christmas. I used to laugh that stuff off. I used to think, well, that's just family. But what happens when just family becomes a phrase you use to justify being disrespected? The next few days were a blur. My work slowed. I missed a deadline, something I never do. Clients started sending follow-up emails, and I didn't have the energy to respond. I'd open a project and stare at the screen, unable to focus, my mind spiraling into arguments that hadn't happened yet and memories that wouldn't let go. Rock bottom doesn't always look like a dramatic breakdown. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle, a pile of unopened emails, dishes in the sink, days blending into nights, your routines eroding until you're not sure what day it is anymore. By day 5, I hadn't left my apartment. The fridge was nearly empty. I was eating cereal with water because I couldn't be bothered to go to the store. My body felt heavy, my thoughts sluggish, like everything inside me was moving through molasses. And that's when the letter came. It wasn't certified or official looking, just a plain white envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a single printed sheet. No signature, no greeting. We're still your family, Jesse. You need help, whether you want it or not. Stop pushing people away. It's time to come home. No name, but I knew it was Mom. The phrasing gave her away. Those carefully veiled threats disguised as care. That, we know what's best, tone she always used when I resisted something she wanted. I sat on the floor, staring at the note, and something inside me finally clicked. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't unstable. I wasn't lashing out. I was finally defending myself, and they couldn't stand it. They'd built a whole system around my silence. My compliance. I was the one who never asked for anything, who always came through when they needed help, who stayed quiet at dinners when the spotlight passed me by. And now that I'd stepped out of that role, they didn't know what to do. So they labeled it a breakdown. They called it erratic. They framed my boundaries as illness. Because if I wasn't broken, then maybe they were. And that was a truth they couldn't face. So I did something I hadn't done in over a week. I got up. I took a long shower. I shaved. I opened the windows and let the light in, even though it was freezing. I made a list. Not a to-do list, but a rebuild list. 1. Grocery shop. 2. Cancel the family savings account. 3. Back up all client files. 4. Talk to a lawyer. 5. Update all passwords. 6. Join a gym again. 7. Get a therapist. None of it was dramatic. I wasn't looking for revenge, yet. This wasn't about some cinematic turnaround. It was about taking back my life, piece by piece. The grocery store was harder than I expected. My chest felt tight the entire time, like everyone was looking at me, like somehow the world had found out I was being painted as unstable and was judging me for it. But I pushed through. I bought real food. Ingredients. Vegetables. Stuff I used to enjoy cooking before everything got heavy. When I got home, I cooked an actual meal. Chicken stir fry. Ate it at the table, not the couch. No phone. No distractions. Then I started rebuilding my work routine. I emailed my clients, apologized for the delay without giving a reason. Just told them I had to step away unexpectedly and was back on track now. Most of them were understanding. One even replied, "Glad you're okay. Let me know if you need anything." That meant more than he knew. I also reached out to a lawyer, not for a lawsuit or anything dramatic, but just to understand my rights. Could my family legally try to force a mental health hold? Could they access any of my records if I saw a therapist? I wanted facts, not fears. Turns out, they couldn't do much. Not without evidence. Not unless I gave them power I didn't intend to. That was another weight off my chest. Then came therapy. It took me a while to work up the nerve, but I finally booked a virtual session with someone I found through a freelancer support group. Her name was Dana. Mid-40s. Calm voice. No nonsense. She didn't treat me like a ticking time bomb or some poor guy with family issues. She listened, asked questions, never once implied I was overreacting. And during our third session, she said something that stuck with me. When people rely on your silence to stay comfortable, your voice will always feel like a threat. That hit me in the chest like a freight train. She was right. My family wasn't reacting to me being unstable. They were reacting to me finally telling the truth. And once I accepted that, something shifted again. I started walking more. Just little laps around the neighborhood in the evening, headphones in, music low. I started sleeping through the night. I stopped checking their socials. I even began planning a solo trip, just me, a cabin, and no Wi-Fi. And little by little, the fog cleared. But I wasn't done yet. Because while I was healing, they were still out there, spinning stories, creating narratives, building their case. I hadn't forgotten that group chat. I hadn't forgotten the letter. I knew the quiet wouldn't last. And I was right. 3 weeks after I started rebuilding, I got a notification. Not a message this time. A request. From Sarah. Through Zelle. $2,800. Label. Family cruise. Your share plus parents. No greeting. No explanation. No apology. Just the same old pattern, rewrapped in a clean interface. I didn't decline it. I didn't accept it either. I let it sit. And then I opened a blank document on my laptop. Title, Statement of Independence. Not legal. Not formal. Just a letter. One I was going to write, not for them, but for me. I wasn't sure what I was going to do yet. But I knew this story wasn't over. They thought I was quiet because I was weak. But they were about to find out just how strong my silence had made me. It's strange how clarity sneaks up on you. One minute you're clinging to scraps of self-worth in the middle of a mental storm, and the next, you're looking out your window with a cup of coffee in hand, realizing you're not the same person who let it all happen. I wasn't the Jesse who quietly footed the bill for everyone else's life. I wasn't the Jesse who waited by the phone on his birthday, hoping someone remembered he existed. I wasn't even the Jesse who froze up when his own brother showed up to gaslight him into compliance. I was someone else now. And the part of me that had been quietly rebuilding these last few weeks, he was done playing nice. Because once I stopped waiting for my family to treat me right, I realized I didn't owe them silence. Not anymore. But if I was going to finally close the chapter, and I mean really close it, I couldn't just block numbers and ghost chats. I had to make sure they understood why I walked away. I had to make them face what they'd done. Not for their redemption, for mine. And I knew exactly where to start. The Family Concerns Orange Heart group chat. That name still made my eye twitch. It was so typical of them, passive-aggressive, performative, and drenched in irony. There was nothing loving about what they'd said in that chat. Nothing heartfelt. Just projection and manipulation dressed up like concern. Luckily, Erica still had access. She wasn't exactly a whistleblower, but after she sent me that first screenshot, she'd followed up with a simple message. Don't trust them. They're not worried about you. They're worried about losing their grip. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. But I bookmarked that message in my head, because if I was going to start putting things in motion, I needed people who saw through the fog. So I called her. The conversation was awkward at first. I hadn't spoken to Erica one-on-one since her wedding 6 years ago. Back then, we were just cousins who shared snacks at the kids' table and rolled our eyes at Aunt Julie's bad jokes. But now, she was the only one in the family who had shown a sliver of humanity. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, I said. She sounded surprised. Jesse. Yeah. A pause. You okay? I didn't dodge it. I'm getting there. Another pause, softer this time. Good. We talked for over an hour. She told me everything. How the family chat had ballooned into a campaign. How Mom was floating the idea of a family intervention. How Sarah and Ryan had been texting distant relatives with carefully curated stories about me shutting down and acting strange. Erica, to her credit, hadn't played along. She said she'd stayed quiet mostly to avoid becoming the next target, but something about that Zelle request, Sarah's gall to bill me like I was still part of their scheme, had pushed her over the edge. I don't know what you're planning, she said near the end of the call, but if you need someone to help them hear you loud and clear, I'm in. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about exposure. See, my family was used to shadows. Backroom whispers. Carefully crafted reputations. But I was the one who worked in data infrastructure. In digital footprints. I knew how to track patterns. How to document behavior. How to make a narrative airtight. And over the next 2 weeks, I did just that. I started building what I jokingly called the case of Jesse V. The entitled 7. It wasn't a lawsuit. It was a timeline. A dossier. A full-blown digital record of everything they'd ever said, requested, implied, or manipulated me into. I combed through years of emails, texts, shared documents, even those old family spreadsheets I'd been asked to manage. You'd be surprised how revealing it is when you line it all up. There was the time I paid for Ryan's car insurance 3 months in a row, thinking he just needed a boost, only to find out he'd gone on a ski trip that winter and bragged about it on Instagram. The time Sarah asked me to help with rent, only to post pictures of her luxury spa weekend the next day. The time Mom told me they were about to lose the house if I didn't send a few thousand, when, in reality, the house had already been sold and they were pocketing the profit to buy a vacation condo in Florida. Pattern after pattern. Each manipulation more entitled than the last. Each guilt trip cloaked in obligation, not love. I cataloged every transfer, every lie, every subtle gaslight. And I turned it into a story. Not for the internet. Not for some Reddit confession thread. This wasn't for strangers. It was for them. and it would be delivered in person. Because Erica had told me something else during our call, something that set the perfect stage. Mom's birthday was coming up. She was planning a dinner. A full family gathering at the house they'd downsized into, complete with catered food, decorations, the works. Erica wasn't invited, but she had access to the invite list. And she knew, beyond a doubt, that everyone would be there. Ryan, Sarah, Dad, Aunt Julie, even some cousins I hadn't seen in years. A big night. A perfect audience. And I was going to crash it. Not with drama. Not with screaming. With precision. A week before the dinner, I sent Erica a package. A USB stick and a set of sealed envelopes. One for each person. Personalized. Inside each envelope was a printed summary of their financial interactions with me over the last 10 years. Every favor. Every loan. Every manipulation. Nothing exaggerated. No commentary. Just facts. The USB contained the full file, the documents, the screenshots, the backup logs. In case they tried to deny it. She was to distribute them after I spoke. Because yes, I was going. Not to argue. Not to yell. To deliver a eulogy. For the version of me they'd taken for granted. I rented a suit for the night. Not flashy, but clean. Crisp. Neutral. I shaved, styled my hair, rehearsed what I was going to say in front of the mirror. Over and over. I wasn't scared. I was ready. The night of the dinner, I drove myself. Parked 3 houses down. Walked the rest of the way. The second I stepped through the door, the energy shifted. Ryan's face tightened. Sarah blinked like she'd seen a ghost. Mom's forced smile cracked just a little. "Jesse," she said, trying to hug me. I stepped back. "I won't stay long." That drew attention. Conversation stalled. A few chairs scraped. "I just have something to say." I continued, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Jess, maybe we can talk later," Dad offered, voice stiff. "No. You've had years to talk. You chose silence." I took out the stack of papers from my coat pocket. Held it up. "I brought receipts. Literally. For every time you forgot me until you needed money. For every time I was good enough to pay your way, but not good enough for a birthday card. For every time you called it family, but meant funding." Whispers. Sarah's mouth opened, but I raised a hand. "I'm not here to debate. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to say goodbye." Mom's lip trembled. "Jesse, this is truth," I cut in. "And if that makes you uncomfortable, that says more about you than me." I placed the stack on the table. Erica, on cue, stepped in from the hallway where she'd been hiding with the envelopes and the USB. "You'll each find your copy here," I said. "And a digital one, in case you want to pretend it never happened." I turned to leave. This isn't a breakdown. This is a boundary. And if you ever really cared, you'll respect it. Then I walked out. And as the door closed behind me, I didn't feel angry. I felt finished. But the fallout? That was just beginning. If the dinner was the delivery, the fallout was the detonation. I didn't expect calls or apologies when I walked out of my mother's birthday that night. I didn't expect change. I knew the people I was dealing with, how they spun guilt into gospel and denial into doctrine. But I underestimated just how fast their carefully polished mask would crack once everyone else had seen behind it. The next morning, Erica texted me 2 words. "They're scrambling." Apparently, after I left, no one touched the envelopes at first. They just stared at them like they were poisoned. But curiosity's a stronger drug than pride. Ryan opened his first. Aunt Julie followed. Then Dad. One by one, as they read the black and white facts, the money trails, the lies, the sheer number of times they'd said, "We're family," right before asking for thousands. The room turned cold. Erica said no one yelled. It was worse than yelling. They sat in stunned silence, shifting blame with their eyes and muttering under their breath. Sarah tried to joke it off, said something like, "Jesse's always been dramatic," but even she looked pale. Because there it was. On paper. Years of unspoken leeching turned visible. By the end of the night, my father allegedly muttered, "Maybe we did lean too hard." That was the closest thing I'd ever get to an admission. But it wasn't just about them anymore. Because I hadn't stopped at printing the files. I'd sent a curated version, not the whole trove, but just enough, to every extended family member who had ever quietly taken sides. Cousins, uncles, aunts who'd rolled their eyes when I skipped holidays or failed to chip in for joint gifts. Each one got a single-page letter, a few screenshots, and a note. If you ever wondered why I stopped showing up, this is why. I didn't tell Erica I did it. Didn't need to. I wasn't looking to burn the family tree. Just strip off the diseased branches. And the impact? Swift. Quiet. Permanent. The Zelle request from Sarah? Cancelled. The cruise? Postponed indefinitely. Ryan claimed it was bad timing, but the real reason was clearer. No one could foot the extra tickets anymore. My mom's monthly Facebook posts? They vanished. Deleted. Her timeline scrubbed of family pride, quotes, and group photos, replaced with inspirational reposts about healing and letting go. But the biggest fallout came from someone I hadn't expected. Dad. We were never close. He was a man of few words and fewer affections. His way of parenting was to exist in the same room and occasionally offer vague advice like, keep your head down, or don't stir the pot. He rarely intervened, even when Mom's guilt trips turned cruel or Ryan's jabs got too personal. But 2 weeks after the dinner, I got a letter in the mail. Not a text, not an email, a handwritten letter. The envelope had no return address, but the handwriting was his. I recognized the tight, precise letters he used to write checks when I was a kid. Inside was a single page. Jesse. I read everything. I didn't realize how far it had gone. That's not an excuse, just the truth. Your mother, she's always been strong-willed. And I let her handle the family stuff, because I thought that was her role. I see now that I left you alone in more ways than one. I don't expect you to forgive us, but I want you to know I'm sorry. I've opened a separate account. Anything your name ever touched is closed. No more expectations. Take care of yourself. Dad. No signature. No flourish. Just that. It hit me harder than I expected. Not because it fixed anything, but because it proved what I'd always suspected. He saw it. Maybe not all of it, but enough. And that was all I needed. I didn't reply. I didn't reach out. Some things are better left unresurrected. Meanwhile, Erica and I grew closer. We weren't best friends overnight, but we started grabbing coffee once a week. She'd fill me in on family gossip, who tried to spin the story, who backed down, who quietly faded into the background. We didn't gloat. We just observed. She understood what I'd done, and more importantly, why I did it. People always act like revenge is this fire that consumes you, she said once, sipping her latte. But yours? It was surgical. You didn't lash out. You just handed them a mirror. Exactly. See, revenge isn't always about ruining someone. Sometimes, it's about removing their ability to ruin you. I didn't need to humiliate them. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to create a scene. All I had to do was stop protecting them from their own reflection. With my accounts closed, their fallback disappeared. The golden goose stopped laying. And when the silence stretched, they had to face something they hadn't in years. Each other. Ryan could no longer hide behind, Jesse will take care of it. Sarah had to fund her lifestyle without backup. Mom couldn't spin a crisis when there was no one left to fix it. And me? I kept building. I launched a side project I'd been dreaming about for years, a mentorship platform for freelancers who wanted to break into IT. Nothing big at first. Just a few courses, some templates, one-on-one sessions. But it grew fast. Turns out, there were a lot of people out there like me. Quiet types who'd been told they owed the world their silence in exchange for survival. Now I taught them how to build without begging, to create value without apology, to find their own voices and protect them. I stopped thinking of myself as broken. I stopped flinching every time I saw a notification. I stopped wondering if cutting off my family made me a bad son, or a bad brother, or a bad person. Because I wasn't cutting off love. I was cutting off access. There's a difference. And the final chapter? It came unexpectedly. 6 months later, I got a wedding invite. Not from Sarah. Not from Ryan. From Liam, my youngest cousin. The one who once texted me for gaming gift cards and never said thank you. The invite was handwritten. Polite. Personal. Jesse, I know we haven't been close, but I want you there. You've shown me more about self-respect in the past year than anyone else in this family ever did. You changed the story. I'd like to start a new one. I didn't cry, but I smiled. Because that was the point. Not to destroy. To shift the narrative. To make sure no one else inherited the same silence I once wore like armor. That night, I stood on my balcony. The city lights below. The air quiet. My phone, finally, blessedly still. And I thought about that lonely birthday a year ago. Just me and some stale cupcakes. It was the last time I ever let someone else's neglect define my worth. Now, I defined it myself. And I never bought another cupcake I didn't want.